Hi everyone, my name is Kashonda Geiger and I am here with Aubrey McMahon, who leads a support group here in Charlotte at the Central Coffee Co. in South End on Camden Road. So Aubrey, Aubrey, I think my first question would be to give us some background about how you started the support group and what inspired you to do so.
Absolutely. So I always tell people I flirted with an eating disorder in high school, and it never really took full force until I moved to college. I went to a small college and they had a counseling center, but they didn't have much support outside of that. And so with that change, my eating disorder kind of, took hold of me, and that was my main focus. It wasn't college, it was my eating disorder. And so the university that I went to had a policy where if you're told to seek a higher level care of treatment, they pull your housing and kick you off campus because they don't want the liability if you're to die, and they knew about it. That's just kind of how I interpreted it. It's in their policy. So inevitably, my sophomore spring break of college, I moved into a treatment center, and then at that point I was in treatment for about 4 months, and I came home to the Charlotte area. I grew up in Mooresville, so I came home to the Charlotte area and moved to Charlotte and kind of realized that besides my therapist, I really didn't have much support. I had a couple friends that I had met in treatment, but other than that, I was on my own. So my therapist urged me to join a support group, so I tried out a few, but never really felt quite comfortable and like I could be myself. So I had met two girls, and actually on a Facebook group for other people that struggle with eating disorders, and we met up and the group just kind of formed itself. So through all of that, we've had some trial and error with group, and they're no longer leading, but so I've just kind of taken it under my wing as kind of my own personal project while I work towards going back into school and also taking care of my own mental health. So, we have it's not predominantly, a lot of the girls that come to group do struggle with eating disorders, but it's, anxiety, depression, PTSD, self-harm, schizoid personality disorders. I don't really put a stipulation on anything because I don't think that that's fair, as well as the age group. I don't put a stipulation around that. We have some girls that are 15 and come with their parents' consent, and then we have some people as old as, 67 that have come to group. And I think that dynamic is great, just because it allows, older people to give a lifetime of advice to anyone that's younger and vice versa. So, yeah.
And tell us how long the group has been formed under you, and then also what are some of your hopes for the group? Where do you see it growing into? Currently you have a lot of members, so yeah. Talk to us about that.
So I started the group February 2017, and since then, like I said, I'm not a therapist, so it's kind of been a little bit of trial and error. Used to be co-ed, but just for the mental and emotional safety of some of the women that are in group, we moved it to females only. And then, so that's, been great. We have over 500 people online that are part of our Facebook support group, which is private. And then we are on a site called Meetup, but I want to switch off of that because it's expensive to keep group going on there. And, I'm in school, I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart. So, spending money and trying to keep a group alive online just seems kind of silly. So that's why I'm hoping to switch this to Facebook only. And I would love to expand the group. Right now we have about, at least 15 members that come every week to the coffee shop. It's getting a little bit small. I do love that environment though, just because it's more relaxed. It's not, people can, feel free to open up, and we have a private room. Yeah, and the safety of them is extremely important to me. So I want to grow group and, ultimately find a bigger space to have a group that group members are also comfortable with. And the coffee shop is central in Charlotte. So we have group members that come from Rock Hill, some people come from Greensboro, some people come from, Shelby. It just depends. People are all over the place. And so even just that in and of itself has proven to me that a lot of people need support, and a lot of people may not be able to find that wherever they live.
And how hard is it to find support groups in Charlotte, and how does one go about finding the best support group in Charlotte? Like, how can they get in tune with you? And
So group, we meet every Sunday from 4 to 6, like you said, at Central Coffee Co. off of Camden Road. And when you come to group, we do, there are some days, obviously, because the holidays, we won't have groups on weekends where I don't think people are gonna come. So we kind of base it off of that. We have a Facebook group, so we have even girls who don't have Facebooks, who will just create one just to be in the group. So, I'm like, if you want your name to be Flower Girl, that's fine, just as long as you're in group. Because I know a lot of people don't have Facebook, but for me, that's just, my way right now of getting the word out. Like I said, I want to stop Meetup because it's very expensive to keep it going.
Initially, when you started, were there a lot of support groups that appeared up for you, and what was your experience with those support groups that drove you to want to do your own?
So when I was first told to seek out a support group, I went on a website called Psychology Today, where a lot of providers post like groups they have or just about themselves and what services they offered. And I inquired about a lot of groups and no one ever got back to me. Then I went to an EDA group, which is Eating Disorders Anonymous group. It's kind of follows the scheme of AA, but for eating disorders. And I didn't feel completely comfortable there. Just a few of the ways that they ran group were, I just didn't feel safe. I didn't feel like I can fully express myself and be myself. So that, I think, is extremely important with finding the group. And that's why, to be honest, with forming group, I just kind of based it off of things that helped me feel safe and as the leader, and it turns out that helps a lot of people. Coffee shops are such like a general place for everyone, whether it's a business meeting, you're studying, you're just getting coffee, you're there with family or friends. It's a low-key environment where you don't feel like you have to act a certain way, whereas if it's held in a church or something, that can be a little bit more intimidating to a group. And we're also open to the LGBTQ community, and a lot of times they may not feel comfortable meeting in churches or anything like that. So we try to adapt and keep everyone safe and feeling like they belong and that they're able to be themselves in that group. And that's why we also have a private room, which I think is important too. And just in terms of finding groups, honestly, Google search. Every time someone new comes to group, I ask them, how did you find group? A lot of people have said Meetup. Google searches, some providers in the area know about me and know about the group, so they've recommended it as well, which is awesome. And so pretty much, yeah, just word of mouth. I do my best to try to get the word out. A lot of events, any mental health events that you see or walks, like the National Eating Disorder Association has a walk, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention has a walk that they hold in Charlotte. Unfortunately, I'm not able to do a booth at those because they cost money. They cost, at least $100, $200 just to have a booth there, and me being, doing this by myself, I'm not able to do that. So just looking online and asking people or providers, if you see any providers, asking them, or local treatment centers oftentimes have resources. So that would be the best way, or just come to group.
So I understand it's great to have great support when you're talking about mental health and people going through different illnesses or issues with mental health. So how can someone's family be of a better support to them? Or how can someone's family, even someone you've experienced at group, how can someone's family be a part of helping them and being supportive?
I think a lot of times it can get a little bit iffy with family support.
Yeah.
A lot of families, let's say your daughter comes to you and is like, I have an eating disorder. It's a lot harder for you to swallow that pill than it is if it was your friend's daughter. And so from what I've experienced, most people's family members just want to fix them. That's the word. They want to fix them and make it better and go away and move on, which in all reality, you didn't develop a mental illness overnight, so it's not going to, go away overnight. And you have to realize that recovery from any mental illness, whether that be substance abuse or, a drug addiction or an eating disorder or even just anxiety and depression, there will be ups and downs in that. And I think that's hard for a lot of family members to understand, because you just want so badly for that person to recover and be done with it and you can move on. And that's not, like I said, the reality of it. So I think just being mindful of that, and also for me, myself, not policing that person in a sense where you're like, how are you doing? Or, why aren't you eating? I saw you didn't eat. Like, just don't, because then that person may take it as feeling attacked and feeling like they're doing wrong when, they're just trying to get through the day. And I think also for family members, just, even if you have, for me personally, having like, Friday nights we order pizza and watch a movie, and we can also, that opens up the table to like, how was your week? Like, is there any way I can support you differently this week? Is there anything I did that wasn't helpful? Just trying to keep an open conversation and non-judgmental, and also don't blame that person for, being a certain way. So I think that's helpful. And a lot of family members, practice takes perfect. You may say something wrong and that's okay. You just, I also advise people to get a therapist too, even if it's just your daughter that's struggling with an eating disorder. It affects everybody. So you're more than, justified and right in getting a therapist, or at least having a close friend where you can talk to and get advice. And, I think many people that struggle with mental illness, it's so hush-hush because it's so put out as you're a bad person for struggling.
Stigmatized.
Yeah, and when in all reality, like, it shouldn't be that way. Once you're more open about it, in group we've had people, we start with intros and you talk about what you struggle with, and 2 people had sat next to each other and said that they struggled with bipolar disorder, and then they high-fived each other, which I just love, because yes, you're struggling with someone or something that really, really sucks, and yet you're finding joy and solidarity in that, and knowing that you're not alone.
And I think normalizing that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, normalizing it, and saying, whether or not you're on psychiatric meds, we talk about that too, and there's nothing wrong with it. You're just, one of my favorite quotes is, I will not apologize for the ways in which I choose to survive. And I think that that's extremely important to remember, because at the end of the day, like, that's all you're doing is you're trying to survive. And so family members, I think, also need to remember that too. Like, you're trying to keep your kid alive and they're trying to keep themselves alive. Like, you're doing the best you can. You will have hard days, and you should see a therapist.
So in closing, I'd like to know, what message would you like to leave with young women who are needing support in Charlotte?
I think ultimately it's hard to come to terms with the fact that you might be struggling, and I guess to, just generalize it is be brave. Whether that's taking the step to talk with one of your parents, or a friend at school, or a counselor at school, all of that is one step closer to getting you help. And there's no shame in struggling. Like I said, everyone does. Whether or not they'll admit that, that's on them. And I think for a lot of girls in the Charlotte area, as I've learned, they do need support and they don't know where to go. And so I think just being open, and even I'm I like to kind of cater to new people that come to group and their needs. So whether that be you contact me directly and you're like, hey, I want to come to group, I'm not exactly ready, I'll meet you at the coffee shop early and we can talk and kind of talk through your anxiety about coming to group, because you're going to sit in a group with 15 strangers that you don't know. So I want to make you as comfortable as possible. And so whether it's just that we meet for coffee before group, or we just meet for coffee, or text for a while, or you talk with someone that's in group, just taking small steps, and as small as you need, that's okay. And then once in group, a lot of people have used group kind of as the bridge to switch them from not having a therapist support or any support to having support. I urge a lot of people and people that are in group to find a therapist, and I have recommendations for therapists and dietitians and doctors in the area that know about my group and are willing to work with people from group. And so I think it's great for people to kind of get out of their isolation. And also as group, we do fun things too. Every month we'll have an outing, whether that be we paint pottery, we go hike Crowder's Mountain, we have a movie night, a game night, those sort of things, just to kind of also get you out of that isolation, and just to know that these people are here to support you, and we don't have to be serious all the time, and that you shouldn't feel like you have to be serious and about what you struggle with, because just be yourself. And so I think ultimately for people in Charlotte, seek out a group. If you, even contact me, I'd love to, help you find a group. And even if it's not my group, as long as you have support, I'm happy. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for
You're
sitting
welcome.
with me today. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for watching. The Stakeholder is about normalizing conversation around mental health, therapy, outlets, and support groups. It's about allowing yourself to advocate for yourself and be proud of yourself through every journey. So again, my name is Kashonda Geiger, and I'm so excited to be bringing you the Stay Code. Stay tuned for the next episode.